Hi guys, it's Will here and welcome to the Upgraded Ape Show. Upgrade your brain, get more done, kick life's ass. Hi guys, it's Will here and welcome to another episode of the Upgraded Ape Show. Today we have Michael Fishman on the show and we dive into the sales and marketing psychology of selling healthcare products. What you as a consumer can do to look out for snake oil products essentially, and what you can do to protect yourself. But before we dive into the conversation with Michael, just a couple of things to quickly run through. First off, I've been getting a lot of emails asking why the show isn't on iTunes, but when the show was labelled as the Upgraded Ape Podcast, it still is. Basically, when you change the domain, so we've gone from podcast.upgradedape.com to radio.upgradedape.com, you need to resubmit the show to iTunes, and it has been submitted. We're just waiting for it to be approved and for it to show up. So when it does, I'll drop everyone an email that's email me proactively, and yeah, you'll be able to see it on iTunes easier rather than just using the website to listen. Next up, we've got some cool new products. A lot of you guys will have seen the daily planner that we put together, the Get More Done daily planner. That's now been updated. It looks a lot more beautiful and it's had some functional updates as well. But in addition to that, we've got a new to-do capture system. The point of both of these systems is that there's been a strong push for people to move to either Outlook-based kind of productivity tracking and daily tasks and mobile and online to-do systems, and I've never managed to get them to actually work more than a couple of days. The only way I've ever managed to get a capture and to-do system to work is to write it down. So I was scratching my own itch creating these products essentially, and it's what I use every day to get things done. So you can check them out at the shop at the upgradedape.com store. So without further ado, let's dive into our interview with Michael. Hi, Michael, and welcome to the Upgraded Ape Show.
Oh, thank you so much, Will. Fantastic to be here with you.
Great stuff. Well, I've invited you to come on the show just to have a bit of discussion about the consumer psychology behind health products, but from the perspective of yourself and I, of the marketing tactics and what goes on behind the scenes to empower the listeners, basically, hopefully give them an opportunity to make better choices with what they're buying, supplementing with, and just healthcare in general.
Mm-hmm.
So before we dive into it, can you just tell us a little bit about your background in marketing within the world of health and personal development?
Sure. I appreciate that, Will. Well, I've spent the last, believe it or not, 25 years or so supporting, advising, and consulting with consumer health businesses, those being magazines, newsletters, book publishers, online content publishers, vitamin supplement companies, wearable technology devices, every content category, every product imaginable, marketed to men and women of every age imaginable to cure and prevent everything imaginable. So I've really been blessed to really work on literally hundreds of product launches, all throughout the spectrum, and all products marketed, all content and products marketed directly to consumers. Many of those have been positioned with personalities. Many of those have been positioned with universities and hospitals, which are philosophically quite a bit more conservative in terms of health solutions. Some have been consumer advocacy groups. So in terms of positioning and the customer avatar and the products being sold, I've been very, very fortunate to see quite a bit.
When you say you've worked with individuals or products that are working with individuals or universities and the like, is there a specific mix of personality, celebrity, or university, or something else that sells really well and helps bring the product along, just specifically?
Well, at least in the States, and I don't know the market in Europe or worldwide, but in the U.S., the editorial products tend to be either big brand magazines like Prevention or Men's Health, or consumer newsletters published by Harvard Medical School or other significant medical schools or hospitals, or personalities, well-known doctors and nutrition and health personalities. And the interesting thing, Will, is that as I sort of pointed out earlier, the universities and hospitals tend to be much more conservative not so much into prevention, but much more about helping people deal with the things that they've already come down with. So really the drugs and surgery model, if you will, very traditional, very conservative, and the personalities tend to be much more in the alternative medicine, functional medicine, integrative medicine, which is either very far to the left with, really an aversion to drugs and surgery in the traditional model, or sometimes, just pulling the best from both sides, the best of the alternative and functional worlds and the best of the traditional world so that people really get what is best suited to them, from a doctor that truly is open-minded.
Mm-hmm. So would you jump in once a product's been developed to put together a customer avatar and the marketing side of it, or are you in from the very beginning of researching from the bottom up of what the actual customer wants?
Yeah, it's a great question. Sometimes I'm involved as an advisor at the point of conception, identifying opportunities in the marketplace and supporting the product development process. Most frequently, I'm involved when products are either at launch or have been launched and marketing performance needs to be improved. And because I always work with a scoreboard, I'm always looking at metrics or those parts of a marketing campaign that can be measured, right? Mm-hmm. So, what we measure on, what we focus on, what we measure, we can improve. So generally, I'm working on things that can be improved, like open and click-through rates with emails, the extent to which people opt in with their email to join an email list on a website, the extent to which people migrate from email lists to purchasers, those kinds of things, which, as you know, can readily be measured.
Cool. Well, just looking at that then, what specifically, and this is kind of a broad question, so go into it as deep as you like, with taking an example of a vitamin or supplement or something along those lines, what is it that drives people to open an email? Is it the supplement, it says it does something, or is it giving away the end benefit of what this could likely potentially develop, and what's the end benefit for the customer? What is it that people want, and what drives them to open emails?
Well, to open emails, all they've really got is who it's from and the subject line, because they're not into the email yet, right? So we just want to look at why do people open emails. So if it comes from a company that if it comes from a big brand, whether or not the person has ever purchased from that company, if it comes from a recognizable company in the marketplace that they have a sense of trust for, that's a positive in terms of who the email is from. If they don't know the name of the person or the company that the email is coming from, but there is, say, somebody with doctor credentials associated with the business, either the doctor is the business or they're representing or endorsing the business, it's always helpful to have an email coming from a doctor because it has a little bit of urgency and certainly some credibility to it. It's hard to get emails opened if they are coming from a company or a person that has little or no recognition with the person who's looking at their email inbox. In terms of subject lines, it's important for a subject line. Good subject lines do sometimes will hint or just mildly tease as to what might be inside if someone opens the email. It's very, very important never to hint at something that isn't actually in the email, right in the first paragraph, because you never want to tease and not deliver. But good email subject lines that do get emails opened tend to have kind of a universal fascination. In fact, one of the very high open rates, for most companies, even their own email list will open in the 20 to 30% range, and that's actually quite good. But I heard of a company last year that had an email open rate with one particular email in the 50 or 60% range, which is extraordinary, with a subject line that said, "Never eat chicken with rice," which is something that most people do with some frequency. And so it was so universal and so contrary to what most people think is fine to do that it generated a very high degree of curiosity. So that would be one example.
Linking to that, so not necessarily staying specifically on email, but when a company is putting across a message, whether it be a reputable company or not within the healthcare market, what kind of emotional triggers are they looking to set off in the customer? Are they trying to solve a very specific need, or do they sometimes perhaps try and create a need? Is there a balance between the two, or is one right and one wrong?
Yeah, another fantastic question, and the fact, Will, is you can't create need. Need is, a need in the marketplace that actually is deep enough and wide enough to support the productivity of a marketing campaign or even the growth of a company. You can't create need. What you can do is you can serve or harness existing need, or you can trigger a need that might be latent or that somebody might have if it were pointed out to them. But truly generating a need, I don't think is possible. Generally, with effective marketing and effective copy, we want to speak to people in such a way that they understand what's being presented to them and why it's the best in class, or why it's helpful, why it's trustworthy, why it works. But we also want people to feel understood by the company that's talking to them. And the key to that really is for companies not to use clinical or scientific or advanced vocabulary, but to speak to their customers and their prospects with the words and language that their customers and prospects use. And that's the key to affinity and connection and to customers feeling understood. So as an example, a lot of times in headlines we see the term, like in health, we see optimal wellness. Or in personal finances, we see financial literacy. Those are terms that most people can understand, but it isn't how they talk. Nobody ever woke up in the morning wishing for financial literacy. They wish they had more money. They want what financial literacy means, but they never describe it in those terms. So companies go out of their way sometimes to sound clever or smart or believable, but that's, ultimately clarity trumps all of those other things. And clarity means using the words that your customers use and speaking to them like a trusted friend.
Sure. But surely when you're dealing with a supplement that a doctor's recommending via their face being on the label, is there a balance there of not wanting to use wording that's too wishy-washy and trying to make it more formal just to kind of fit the situation?
Well, when you have a supplement or even an editorial product, a book or something of that nature that is positioned and offered by a personality, i.e., a doctor, the marketing in its best execution will be in the voice of that person, either he or she. It will be transparent and compassionate, and might even tell a story of something that doctor or personality conquered or overcame in their own life, in their own health and wellness, so that there's affinity there, and of course those stories are true.
Well, that's a good point. Was it lied? Does it have to be true, or can you use an anecdote and kind of lather it up, I guess, for the marketing?
I've never encountered that, Will, really.
And I'm not talking specifics in your work or anything else as well, but I mean, where does it stand? I guess the proof is in it that if you were to lie and someone would find out, that would ruin your credibility anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there's no room, and and it's a good question, but for legitimate companies, there's no room for misrepresentation, because if you're misrepresenting the mythology or the history of your company or your founder, then who's to say you're not misrepresenting your ingredients or something quite a bit more critical?
Sure.
Right now, we've got this whole internet culture, and I think sometimes people and even companies feel like, these like cold impersonal transactions are actually okay because, after all, we're dealing with the internet and there's no human voice and no human touch. But the fact of the matter is, people expect a very high-touch experience. They expect to be cared about. They expect to be taken care of and served, and that there be experiences of caring and compassion and hospitality, even from companies that are never associated with hospitality. In the States, we have Zappos and even global brands like some of the great airlines, or the Ritz-Carlton brand. Those are high-touch service experiences, and the great companies on the web, including those in health and wellness, are delivering that kind of experience where when you call customer service, you get a live person, not a recording. And you can speak to someone 24 hours a day, either in live chat on a site or via telephone. But the important thing for any company, and including those positioned or led by doctors and health and wellness personalities, is transparency, and that marketing that the marketing be congruent and consistent with who that person is, and that doctor or personality can actually feel good about the way in which their business is represented, and that it not be overly filled with hyperbole and exaggeration. And so really that there be no exaggeration whatsoever.
For sure. On the point of high touch, where do you see this going? I've seen it myself with being a retailer online, that my customers love when they get a reply back from me within a couple of minutes, usually if I'm in front of the computer. And live chats have been experimented with. Do you see things like video calling becoming more and more mainstream as essentially mobile phones and everything else can hook into that super easily?
I think that will. I don't know that companies are. I haven't seen companies doing that yet, but I think the more those interactions can be warmed up and made more human, things will. I can only guess that things will go in that direction. People want connection. People want to be heard. There are companies that are empowering their customer service representatives to stay on the phone as long as possible. The good companies don't time those calls anymore to require their customer service reps to get off quickly. Some are even incenting their representatives to stay on longer and talk to people about whatever it is they want to talk about, so that the experience is maximized. And really all that. That's not only is that compassionate and kind to customers, but it's good business because it drives loyalty, it drives connection, and it drives future purchases. So it really is a win-win.
For sure. Okay, well, let's dive back into some more of the psychology of things, because I think the audience will really enjoy that. And perhaps looking at things that, for example, pricing or limited time offers that you see all the time, and the basic marketing tools, but as a consumer, you may not pay much attention to, other than manipulate's the wrong word, but being, it's a positive manipulation to get you to close the deal. What specific things are used online, tools of that nature, things like limited time offers, and how do they work?
Sometimes you see, particularly in like courses or educational programs or information products that are only offered for a period of several weeks in a fairly narrow window of time. And then those publishers legitimately say, doors close tomorrow, and it's just a fact. But the fact of the matter is, when people, human nature is to procrastinate or wait till the last minute. Lots of people do, and so that's why we see, when we market not only products but even conferences, conference registrations tend to come in. Many people register at the last minute. We always see a big bump in registrations in the last week, or we see a big bump in people purchasing courses or information products, before in the last 24 hours before the shopping carts close. And that's just human nature. But there are businesses who do market, for limited periods of time. There are products that are not sold all year, And so those, we see that kind of behavior where that last minute syndrome shows up very noticeably in terms of when people buy. And things, companies that are known for having things on sale, means it's, buying things on sale, is not only a habit of lower or middle income people. The entire income spectrum appreciates saving money, and so anything that goes on sale has people have an appreciation for, and so you will see products characterized as costing less than they usually do. But once again, the legitimate companies, when they say it used to be $100 and now it's only $80, a legitimate company will actually have had the product on sale for that higher price. They won't just say that it is normally $100 when they've never sold it for $100. You see?
Yeah, I mean the classic example over here in the UK. I've no idea about the US, but you get constant streams of advertising of sofa and furniture companies. They seem to just go from one sale to the next sale to the next sale, and you know damn well that the price hasn't gone, or maybe for a day or two it's gone up, so that they can say it's gone down, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's super annoying. It's always on UK TV.
Well, so of course there are sales around holidays, and almost everybody, even marketers of prestige luxury products, sometimes come up with reasons to reduce prices on things. But it's universally used, and it's universally successful.
Cool. Well, my next question for you: do you believe that if something sounds too good to be true, as a marketer, when you're browsing the internet, with regards to health products, that it's likely misleading, or are there kind of these holy grail products out there? Because everywhere I seem to look, there seems to be things that are going to cure all kinds of illnesses and ailments. And I'm lucky in that I've got a degree in chemistry. I've been in this kind of world for a while that I know enough science and chemistry and biology to look it up, but most people don't. Do you think it's a good point of rule to go by, that if something's too good to be true or sounds too good to be true, it likely is?
Well, I don't know if the word likely is really a fit here, because there are lots of things that people are not familiar with that do improve health conditions very reliably. I think it's more, but I do think some suspicion, and some I think it's smart to be aware. I think it's smart to be careful. I think that websites that don't really show where that company is located, and that don't have a phone number that you can call and talk to somebody, that don't have a very prominent 24-hour customer service function. Companies that are proud of what they're doing and are selling products that legitimately help people tend to do so with marketing that's quite transparent, that some, not always, but sometimes have a link on their site that says about us, and they'll show the men and women who run the business and have some transparency and visibility that way. There are phone numbers. There's a physical street address. The kinds of things that indicate transparency and that indicate legitimacy. As I say, there are many products, but ingestible products, and also wearable devices, and all different kinds of products that really do help with a great many conditions that might be surprising to people. Particularly if they're researching on Google a condition that they have for the first time, and they're just sort of feeling their way around their options for the first time, and maybe not familiar with digestive conditions or certain types of pain, those kinds of things. They may encounter things they're not familiar with, but generally the sources, the ways in which legitimate companies portray themselves, and the transparency and their accessibility tend to be fairly consistent.
Awesome. I was hoping you'd give that answer. I was playing devil's advocate a little bit there. But yeah, you're totally right. If a company looks legitimate, you can speak to someone, you grab hold of them, then you're at least in a position where you can ask questions, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Legitimate companies are available, and not, not they don't all have 24-hour customer service, but there might even be research papers on the site from academic, peer-reviewed literature, that is, sort of, translated for non-professionals to explain the science. Look, unfortunately, health products aren't, to your point, health products are an area where there are many companies that are not, don't have the purpose of helping people, that are getting into health products because to them it's a financial opportunity, and they're not really coming at it from a purpose of helping people, and they're willing to bend, if not break, the rules or the boundaries of integrity or legitimacy. And so it is important to be aware, because unfortunately there is a fair amount of that out there, and sometimes, some of the danger signals could be that they're in a faraway country. Generally, there's generally plenty of legitimate companies on the web that are in relatively nearby places inside the country in which people live, with a high degree of transparency around the management team, around the science behind the products, and with accessibility to call in and talk about it.
Sure. Because I sometimes get the question from customers of different nootropics and brain supplements, and when they're asking me where they should buy them from, because obviously being in the UK, there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't sell and can't sell. I try to always put the point across that perhaps you're buying this powder, it's coming from India, you've no idea what's in it, because the consequences could be, from its baking powder to it's disastrous.
Right, exactly. Well, and in the supplement category, science-based or based on science or based on human clinical trials, where in the clinical trial the dosages that were tested, like the dosages that are being sold in the products are the same as the dosage that were proven to be effective in the clinical trial, and that the ingredient comes from the same region of the world where the ingredient in the clinical trial was sourced. These various areas of congruency and consistency, and really having a basis in science is really how the legitimate supplement companies are representing themselves right now as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome stuff. Well, look, are you ready for some quick-fire questions?
Go for it, Will. Go for it.
What time of the day are you most productive?
Oh, goodness, that changes quite a bit from day to day, but I would say probably in the morning, like 7 to 10 a.m.
Cool. Is that pretty much straight after you get up?
Yes, it is. I only sleep about 5 or 6 hours a night, so I could be grooving at 1 in the morning as well. But I would say morning is kind of a good zone for me.
Cool. Do you do anything specific to hack your sleep and get it down to that kind of time, or is that just what you're used to?
That's the story of my life. 6 hours works really well. If on the odd occasion that I actually sleep 7 or 8, it's actually a bit much, and I might be a little bit foggy that day.
Fair enough. Well, it's likely you're waking up in the wrong part of your sleep cycle, I guess, if you're putting those extra hours in and you're used to the 6 hours.
I'll let you support me on that offline.
So what is one thing that you're grateful for today, Michael?
Well, today I'm very grateful to be talking to you and sharing and just connecting with the great people that listen to you. And I'm always grateful for my friends and family, and just the really amazing ecosystem that I have around me of extraordinary people who work, very committed to a purpose of helping others. It's a great environment and a great group of people and friends and associates to work with.
If you could recommend one book to listeners that's helped you kick more ass, what would it be?
Well, sorry about the sirens there. Kicking ass sounds like kind of more like a personal angle. Not sure what that one would be, but the one thing.
Well, either kicking ass at business
Yeah.
or the sales and marketing or just, any personal development books, I guess.
One thing that people should really look at is the Culture Code by Dr. Clotaire Rapaille, Rapaille. And that really looks at the extent to which our survival-based brain, our reptilian brain, drives our purchasing decisions and drives the affinity and the attraction we have for products and companies in ways that we're frequently not aware of. That part of the brain which ensures our survival and is on the constant lookout to keep us safe from danger also evaluates language and personalities and companies and products and as animals, our brain is programmed to keep us safe from danger, and that's that part of the brain really does run the show, even in things that we evaluate to buy and the purchase decisions that we do make. And the Culture Code really looks into that in a very accessible, very fascinating way. And so I'd strongly recommend that folks check into that.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Is that going into the world of the subconscious and the reptilian brain?
Absolutely correct, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, Michael, I've got one last final question for you today. And it's something I ask every guest on the show. And Upgraded Ape listeners are looking to upgrade their brains so they can get more done and kick more ass. If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice when you were growing up to help you kick more ass and either get things done quicker and move your life along or change things that have gone on, what would it be?
Something that I learned in a very powerful way, I think in relatively recently, and not that I spent a lot of time not being this way, but I think having a spirit of generosity always, like leading with generosity, giving without expectation of return in life and business. I think that generates, and not to go into kind of a new age kind of a thing, but I think in a very reliable way that gives you a reputation, and it generates a lot coming back to you. And I think the most successful people I know lead with generosity, and they look to support and inform and help the people around them in a very selfless manner. And so not only is that kind and appreciated by the people around you, but I think there's a feedback loop there that actually serves the generous person in a massive way. So that's what I would say.
Cool. Do you believe that there's some kind of metaphysical karma, or do you believe that it's more kind of you give, so then you feel good about yourself by giving, which then draws people into you because you're happy and you're giving value?
There's another book actually by a professor at the University of Pennsylvania named Adam Grant. It's called Give and Take. It's really a very interesting, very accessible look at the way in which giving, and the types of givers that there are, really generates abundance for the giver in a very reliable way. I like to believe with quite a bit of faith that, it just makes me feel good to believe that it's coming back to me in kind of a karma type way, the way you said. But I also think in very practical terms that it just becomes part of your personal brand. It becomes part of your reputation. And when you do that enough over enough years, and not as a strategy, it's not a strategy, it's not a tactic. It really needs to come in a very organic, natural way from your heart. Because if it's a strategy and if it's not coming from your heart, people can sense that. So nobody should do this as a strategy. People should. Do you know what I mean? People should do it in a very natural, organic way, and it just becomes something that people immediately associate with you, such that wherever you go, you're really welcomed and appreciated, and that shows up in business as well.
That's great advice. Tony Robbins has a bit on giving. I'm sure it's something along the lines of, if you give wanting something back in return, you're going to be disappointed. But if you just give without wanting anything back in return, you're going to constantly feel good about it because there's nothing to feel bad about in that kind of psychology
Yeah,
mindset
it's a
way.
powerful feedback loop, Will. I think people that live that way, and look, nobody can live that way 100%. I certainly don't, but it is something I'm very conscious of, and that I just that I trust myself, and that I trust that it's always the way to go, and I'm naturally oriented that way, so I just allow myself to freely give, and it turns out it turns out really well.
Well, that's awesome, Michael. I just want to say thanks again for coming on the show. Before we wrap up, can you tell us and our audience a little bit more where we can find more about you?
Sure. Well, michaelfishmanconsulting.com is the mothership, if you will, or home base. There's a contact form there for anybody that would like to get in touch, or alternatively on Twitter at Michael Fishman is quite reliable as well.
Good stuff. Well, thanks again, Michael, for coming on the Upgraded Ape Show. And I've learned a lot. It's been really interesting.
Well, Will, thanks for the privilege of being here, and all the best to you and